Hey there, it's Trisha, and I want to go over Thursday, June 18th. We use two setups with three charts with indicators for confirmation before we ever get into a trade. The confirmation of all these things combined helps keep us out of um, pretty much a going nowhere kind of day. But anyway, if you want to check those out, you can go to www.easyemintrade.com. And the reason why I wanted to go over Thursday was I wanted to go over this area here, which was around an announcement. And I don't trade around anything that's typically going to move the market because you never know which direction an announcement or a report or a consensus is going to move the market. So you could have the perfect setup to go long, for example, and just before the announcement comes out, it turns in the total opposite direction, and so you're stopped out. So pretty much, in my opinion, it's like gambling, unless of course you have some kind of setup that you're using for specific news announcements. So I strongly suggest that every day before trading, you go to an economic calendar and check what reports or what consensus and so on is expected out for that day, so you can plan your trading around that time frame or not to take trades around that time frame. So on Thursday we had the Philly Fed and the leading indicators coming out at 10 o'clock, and basically that's around where these moves are. Just before 10 o'clock it started to move, based on what was going on with those two items. So there's just no way to have a high odds trade, in my opinion, around those announcements or consensus or reports. And if you go to www.nasdaq.com, you can click on the news tab and then on economic calendar, and it's free and you can just check it out every day. And then this way you'll find that it will definitely save you some trouble, in my opinion. So we did have a couple squeezes firing off in the morning before the announcement. And if announcements that move the market are going to come out around 10 o'clock, realistically, we're not going to do any trading till after 10 o'clock. But if you have like for example, I trade after 9:40. If I have something setting up at 9:40, I might be willing to take it, knowing that I'm going to probably be out by 10 to 9, or just tighten up my stops when it gets close to that time frame. But I have to already be in something and not be taking something around that time. But I would also tighten my stops and preserve whatever profits I have sitting there. And this is a squeeze that fired off actually just around the announcement time. So again, yeah, it's there, but you really don't know that it's going to move up. So it's too close to the announcement time, so pass. I pass. This is a trendline break that occurred, and I wanted to point this out because, again, this is another one of my rules. It doesn't have to be one of your rules. But I have this bar here closing below our trend line. You can see it right there. And the way I enter in a trend line break is I enter a half a point under the closing bar. So I've got my order in for half a point under this bar, and I want to get filled on the very next bar. And when this next bar completed, by the time it completed, it had never taken my order. It had never come down to the entry price that I wanted to get filled at. So I cancel my order. If I don't get filled on the very next bar, I'm not interested any longer. Now again, that could be something that you could decide for yourself. But if you decided to just leave your order sitting there, you don't know how long you're going to go sideways before it finally gets filled. And in my opinion, it's at that point it's no longer a valid trend line. This is the trend line break. This is where you want to get filled. If you're not filled on the next bar, it's no longer a valid trade. Then you have to redraw your trend line and then have all your trend line criteria met, touching 3 bars, so on and so forth. So I cancel. Now if somebody sat in this and waited and they would have got filled on this bar, it probably would have been almost 15 minutes they sat there waiting to get filled, and it would have worked out for a couple points. Again, easy to see in hindsight that it would have worked out, but you'd be surprised at how much grief it will save you by canceling your order if you're not filled on the very next bar. And again, that's just one of my rules. Doesn't have to be one of yours. This is a trend line break that that occurred. What time was that? that was at basically just about 11:30, just before 11:30. And I wanted to point this out because, we talk about looking to the left and knowing where your support areas are and so forth. And you can see this area, I did draw a white support line, and we've got this area here to our left. We get our trend line break here, and, we really don't know if we're going to break through that or not. So if you did want to place your order a half a point under this bar, you'd get filled here, hoping that you'd break through. It could be worth the chance, sure, but realistically, what's going to happen is you're going to get down to this moving average area, and then you're going to bounce. So if you do take something like that, and it does happen to break through that support area, just know what is below you and what your expected exit should be. And I'm not saying that you couldn't slice right through that, but you definitely want to take some profits off expecting the bounce there. So other than that, the rest of the day there really wasn't anything that we could hop on board with because of the requirements that we have for taking a squeeze. So even though we have other squeezes firing off later in the day, our entry criteria basically kept us out of this. So anyway, I hope that helps, and you can check those out at www.easyemintrade.com.